Fourthly, the idea of irreducible complexity.
Oh my fucking God. Really? Irreducible complexity? This is a made-up concept by creationists. They want to say that there are some systems out there that are irreducibly complex, meaning that you can't reduce them down to simpler forms. Typically, we see this with like bacterial flagellum or feathers or some shit. But in all cases of irreducible complexity that's claimed by creationists, we've been able to explain how those systems could have come about gradually through slow and small changes via evolution. So anything that he brings up here is just going to show his ignorance of evolutionary biology as well as just being able to do basic fucking research.
And so if you think of the human body and you think that we apparently went from the goo to you via the zoo, from a single-celled organism to a double-celled organism to a tadpole fish, etc., frog, we have to wonder how some of these things evolved. So if you think of our blood vessels, our hearts and our lungs, which evolved first? If it was our blood, how did it stay in our bodies and how did it pump around? If we had blood and blood vessels but no heart, again, how did it move? If we had a heart that was pumping but no blood to pump, what purpose does that serve? Rather, our circulatory system is a complete system that is dependent upon every part and dependent upon the lungs to get oxygen in and CO2. The same with eating. We have a mouth, we have a stomach, we have intestines, and we have waste disposal. Which of those evolved first? How can any of those have evolved independent of the others? They're a complete system that each relies on the other one to work.
All right, let's take these things one at a time. You got the circulatory system. You could do a brief Google search and you could figure all this shit out. But the circulatory system first developed as a simple diffusion in cells. And then it slowly, over time, developed into a more complex system that allowed the blood and oxygen and all those energy sources to be more evenly distributed throughout a body plan, which would resemble our body plan. I'm not saying it's perfect or nothing, obviously it's not. I'm just saying that it took a long time for the circulatory system to slowly evolve. And the reason why it evolved in the way that it has for many organisms, being this complex circulatory system, it's because it provides some advantages. It allows us to survive better. And so that is the advantage of the circulatory system that we have. And it develops slowly over time.
But even more complex than that is sexual reproduction. The idea is that single-celled organisms copied themselves asexually, but at some point in evolutionary history, evolution decided now you need genitals, now you need male and female. And how on earth does two creatures separately to each other evolve the right working bits in order to be able to reproduce, not just in the same creature, but in two different creatures at the same time?
So sexual reproduction obviously is pretty complex, just like any other system out there that you would want to explain through evolution. But basically it started off with asexual forms of reproduction, and then the development of sexual reproduction involved organisms that could switch between asexual and sexual reproduction. The sexual reproduction introduced a greater genetic variety and allowed organisms to be able to change quicker and adapt quicker to their environment and be more readily adaptable in their environment. So sexual reproduction seems to have a lot of benefits over asexual reproduction. Now, obviously, there are still organisms out there that reproduce asexually, like amoebas and other single-celled organisms, but it was obviously evolutionary advantageous for sexual reproduction to eventually develop because of the positive properties in the genetics, providing genetic variety and allowing organisms to change in a more fluid way than asexual reproduction would have allowed. So sexual reproduction develops slowly over time, just like these other things did. He needs everything to come into existence all at once, because that's what his Bible says, that everything popped into existence all at once. The magical wizard in the sky just went boop, and he created man. And then he fashioned the woman out of the man's rib. But the point is, everything went boop and came into existence all at once. Woo! So easy. An old fucking wizard could do it.